Tonight, we wander deep into a world shaped not by time, but by claw and flame. A land where mountains breathe, and monsters carry memories older than any map. The air is still here, not silent, but still. A kind of hush that feels intentional, as though the world itself is pausing, listening. Mist curls low across the forest floor, wrapping around moss-covered roots, like fingers pulling a blanket tighter. Above, trees stretch into the dim canopy, their tops lost in shadow and drifting pollen. And somewhere in the distance, not close but not far, a low rumble echoes once, then fades. Not a threat, just presence. This world is not young. It has no need to be. Time here does not move in minutes or seasons. It breathes. It expands slowly, like tree rings widening over centuries. It contracts again in the space between footfalls, when the hunter holds their breath, waiting for the sound behind the thicket to reveal itself. To walk through this land is not to explore. It is to remember. Something your body knows before your mind does. The trees know it too, wide-trunked, ancient things, their bark split by age, not damage. They don't mark territory, they mark endurance, the way water cuts stone, or wind shapes cliff faces. Roots tangle over old bones. Stone steps, half buried, lead nowhere now. Once pathways, once sacred, now simply worn by weather. And yet, life moves everywhere. Insects hum beneath the canopy, not loudly, but insistently, a chorus of wings and legs and whirring friction that never stops. Between the brush, small lizards with iridescent backs scurry toward shade, their bodies low to the soil. On a fallen log, two birds, one black, one grey, pick seeds from the wood and flick them into the air before darting away. Even the silence carries detail. The weight of humidity on your shoulders, the scent of wet bark and distant flowers, a breeze that doesn't cool, but informs, bringing the faint scent of something large, something scaled, passing through hours ago. The monsters of this world are not invaders. They are the world. Some are as large as trees, their footfalls reshaping the paths that rivers take. Others are small enough to ride the breeze, carried from one high perch to another. None of them are simple. None of them are still. They do not act from cruelty. They are not villains in a fable. They live. They adapt. They remember. There are places, tucked into the ridges of mountains or the base of deep waterfalls, where they return, not to feed or nest, but simply to exist, to lie in the sun, to drink from the same stream they drank from the season before. Their paths wear smooth hollows into the stone, curves etched by centuries of passage. The hunters know these places, and they do not disturb them. A hunter does not seek domination. They seek understanding, not because they are noble, though some are, but because there is no other way to survive here. You cannot hunt what you do not respect. You cannot track what you do not watch carefully for a long time without expectation. Even your gear reflects this truth. A blade is not enough. A bow is not enough. You must know the ground, where it's soft, where it holds. You must read the canopy, follow wind lines, recognize the scent of heat or shedding. You must prepare with more than tools. You must prepare with memory. And always, you move quietly. Even in the wastes, where the sun dries everything to bone and dust, your step must be considered, because beneath that dust, something might stir. Because what seems still often isn't. Because even the cracked earth carries echoes, if you're willing to listen. The wild spire wastes hold their own rhythm. There the heat doesn't come in waves. It arrives and stays. The stone burns before the sun rises. The wind carries sand low across the flats, and anything taller than a hunter must withstand it. Out there, creatures have armored themselves in the landscape. Shells thick with dust, limbs wide and slow. Every movement conserves energy. Every breath is drawn with care. You find signs of them long before you see them. A cracked shell, half buried, dried mud pressed into a claw shape, water pooled in a footprint the size of a barrel, long since evaporated. Then, the hush, the sudden, uncanny hush of wind, stopping for just a second too long. That's how you know. Elsewhere, the land changes again. In the coral highlands, the world shifts into color. Not bright, not overwhelming. Gentle, like the memory of color. Coral arches reach across pale cliffs, their branches brittle and echoing with distant bird calls. The air tastes cleaner here, cooler, a hint of salt and a strange sweetness, like something once oceanic, now dreaming of flight. Flying creatures drift among the coral, their bodies glowing faintly, wings barely moving. Some of them aren't real, not entirely. Light plays tricks here. Sound travels oddly. You might hear a roar and not know which direction it came from. You might see a shadow that's gone before you can name it. And if you wait long enough, you'll start to feel like you're being watched. But not in fear, not in threat, in curiosity. Because the land is watching you too. Not to judge, not to warn, just to understand why you're here. The longer you stay, the more you begin to blend into it. Your breathing slows, your footfalls soften. You begin to move with the same cadence as the wind through the trees, the same rhythm as the brushstroke trails left behind in the riverbeds. You begin to see the difference between a branch and a tail. You stop looking for the monster and start seeing the world that makes it necessary, not as prey, not as a challenge, but as a truth. And beneath these trees, beneath the dunes and coral spires and glacial paths, lie other things, not monsters, not hunters, just stone, broken walls, buried vaults, marks of people who were here before and are now part of the earth itself. Let us go there now, quietly, and sit among their ruins, not to uncover, just to remember. The path downward is easy to miss. It begins behind a wall of ivy, grown so thick and so long that it's become part of the stone itself. You wouldn't see it unless the breeze shifted just right, unless the leaves parted for half a second, revealing the narrow trail behind. You follow it, slowly. The ground darkens, the canopy thickens. The light takes on that soft, diffused hue that only appears in places forgotten by the sun. The roots are wider here, the silence deeper, and the air begins to change. A dampness to it now, a heaviness touched with the smell of still water, rust, and old lichen. Then, the first sign. Not a ruin, not yet. Just a single carved stone, half sunken into the path. Its face is flat, its surface worn smooth by centuries of weather and moss. But the pattern is still there, barely, like the ghost of a symbol. Not a word, a shape, something repeated, again and again, a spiral, etched in rows. You brush away a few leaves, beneath them more stones, a floor, and beyond that the outline of a chamber, walls crumbled inward, a ceiling long since collapsed. No roof now, just open sky, barely visible through the overgrowth. Vines dangle from what remains of the upper arches. Ferns rise from between the tiles. Birds nest in alcoves once carved to hold something sacred. This was a hall once, a place of gathering. You can tell by the shape, wide and rounded at the back, stone benches pressed into the walls, a raised platform near the far end. A few rusted fittings remain in the stone, the hinges of something that once hung there, maybe a bell, maybe a horn. There is no plaque, no name, just the weight of it. Whoever built this place did not do so for conquest. They built it to endure, and in a way it has. Even in ruin it speaks. Look closely at the inner wall. There beneath the lichen you can see it, a mural, faded, fragmented, but still visible. Monsters, not slain, not feared, depicted in movement alongside human figures, walking beside them, dancing in wide arcs through flame and water and wind. Above them, stars. Below them, something circular, the world perhaps, or a wheel. And in the center, something large, something coiled, arms outstretched, wings curled inward. A creature, a construct, both? No one knows for certain. Some call it the equal dragon weapon. Its name drifts through old records like ash on wind, present but never grounded. Not a confirmed thing, not proven, just hinted, described in the margins of scrolls too old to trust, referenced in the broken language of tablets found far from here, miles apart, yet all bearing the same circular crest. What little the guild preserves of it is vague, a being forged in crisis, a weapon not of dominance but desperation, something made or awakened to match what could not be matched, not to win, just to hold the line. Against what, the records do not say, but the imagery repeats itself. Fire spilling over a city wall, mountains split not by time, but by force, a tree burning from the roots up, and in the midst of it, that spiral, spinning, fracturing, gone. The city this mural belonged to no longer has a name. Maybe it never did. All that remains are fragments, structures half swallowed by forests, pillars broken and reused by nests and root systems. Some still carry symbols, but most have been worn down to simple stone, beautiful stone, carefully shaped, left behind. In one chamber, lower down, the ceiling has collapsed inward, not from decay, but from something heavier. The rock above is blackened, charred. The beams beneath it are scorched on one side only, as if flame came from within the ground. There are bones here too, not laid out in burial, scattered, twisted, too old to name, some shaped like yours, some not. These people did not leave. They were taken, not by violence alone, but by erasure. Whatever ended them did so without regard for memory. And yet, memory lingers anyway. In a quiet cove tucked between the cliffs of the hoarfrost, a single column still stands, carved with care, marked with notches, hundreds of them, like a ledger. Some say they represent years, others say they are names, and at the top, etched with unmistakable clarity, is the shape of a flame, caught inside a circle. A warning, perhaps, or a promise. Other ruins remain in other lands, in the deserts, sunken temples filled with sand and silence, great fans carved into the stone, once used to cool chambers now filled with dust. In the jungles, bridges broken by vines, still reaching from one canopy to another, paths now used by flying wyverns and nothing else. In the deepest parts of the coral highlands, where the cliffs become overhangs and the reefs curl inward into great hollow spires, lies what many believe was once a shrine, circular, with no walls, only columns, a place to speak to something above or within. All that's left is a wind chime. It doesn't ring unless you breathe near it. Even then, the sound is barely there. These ruins do not demand discovery. They do not hold treasures or power. They hold rhythm. They hold lessons. They remind the living, the hunters, the researchers, the scribes still copying glyphs by lantern light, that what came before was not simpler, not weaker, just different. Another attempt, another balance, another world folded into this one. Sometimes, when the fog settles low in the early morning, and the trees lean in toward each other like old companions, it's easy to believe you can feel them, the people who stood here before, who carved these halls, who tried to shape something larger than themselves, and vanished into their own intentions. And the monsters, they remember too, not in the way we think of memory, but in the paths they follow, in the places they still avoid, in the strange, heavy way. Some of them pause when they reach the edge of a ruin, looking but not entering, circling once, then turning back into the woods, as if something once told them, not here, not again. The ruins fade behind us now, reclaimed by ivy and time. The air grows brighter, the ground levels, roots give way to wildflowers, and the trees begin to thin. We return not to civilization, but to the living world, wide and vast and breathing. Let us walk now, across forests, tundra, coral, and sand, not to pass through them, to witness them. The land does not change in straight lines. It doesn't ask permission before softening into mist or hardening beneath your boots. It rolls and folds, breathing through stone and forest and ash, letting its mood spill quietly across the terrain. To follow it is not to explore, but to feel your way forward, through air that thickens and thins, through birdsong that shifts by region, through the subtle scent of things not yet seen. In the forest, it begins with damp. The moss is always wet here. Even in sunlight, it clings to the roots with a kind of memory, as if holding on to yesterday's rain just a little longer. Trees rise wide and ancient, their bark pale and flaking in long, papery strips. Their roots spill over the trail, not in menace, just in reminder. The canopy lets only half the light through. What reaches the ground comes in patches, soft columns that catch on spores, or on the wings of insects drifting in lazy arcs above the undergrowth. Nothing moves quickly here, unless it has to. The aptonoth moves slow. So do the shadows. Even the wind, when it comes, arrives more as a question than an answer. This is not a place that reveals itself all at once. There are levels, not designed, but grown. The forest builds upward and downward in layers of shade and leaf and soil. There are clearings that hold light like shallow ponds, and valleys between roots where sound carries differently, muffled, softer, as if you're walking inside a thought that hasn't fully formed. Things live here, things sleep here. You learn to spot their trails, not the obvious ones, the ones marked by silence, where the crickets don't sing, where the birds have flown, where the ferns are bent backward at the wrong angle. A Raytheon has passed here. Recently. The earth still remembers. And sometimes, in the stillness between one step and the next, you hear the rustle of wings above, a heavy shift, high in the canopy, and the light flickers just once. A shadow crosses your path. It does not stop. You don't look up. You simply keep walking. Eventually the trees begin to fall away, not suddenly, but in phases. The moss thins, the light brightens, the soil grows coarse beneath your feet, cracks appear in the old stone, and soon you feel the sun in full for the first time in days. The world opens. Here, there is no canopy, no shelter, only the wide press of sky and the heat that rolls off the stone like breath. The wildspire wastes do not roar. They radiate. Even before the sun climbs fully overhead, the earth is already warm. The light comes from above and below, bouncing off pale rock, shimmering across dry flats. Everything blurs at the edges here. Distance becomes a guess. Time becomes thirst. There is no real silence, only space. The wind cuts low and dry, dragging dust in long, looping spirals. Cacti dot the ridgelines, spiny, self-contained, patient. They do not bloom for you. They do not bloom often. But when they do, the color is so sudden it feels like a secret. Deep red, soft white. The kind of beauty that vanishes if stared at too long. Things live here too, fewer than in the forest, but louder. You hear them before you see them. Kestodon, clashing horns like restless drummers. Apsiros bellows, short and deep, echoing from gully to gully. Further out, in the heat shimmer of the dunes, a larger shape cuts the sand. It moves half submerged, the way fish move through water. You never see the whole of it, just the rhythm, just the wake. It's best not to follow. The deeper flats hold pockets of life, places where water lingers just long enough to invite moss, then birds, then predators. In these hollows, the earth is dark and soft. Footprints hold their shape longer. A hunter crouching here can learn much, but you don't linger. The wastes are not kind to rest. As you climb again, the grit begins to fall away. Your boots track less dust. The air grows cool, not sharp, but damp. There is a smell now, not salt exactly, something older, something like limestone after rain. The coral comes into view in pieces. At first, just pale stone twisted in impossible shapes, then full towers, great branches and ribs of ancient reef, layered and interwoven like the framework of some long-dead cathedral. The coral highlands rise not from water, but from memory. The ocean is nowhere near, but the land still dreams of it. This place feels quiet, even when it isn't. Wind moves through the reef structures with a whispering pitch, like voices underwater. When it rains, the droplets hit coral with a crystalline chime. Pools collect in the hollows, and frogs nestle into the alcoves left behind by, now vanished, sea life. Colors here are soft, but strange. Not the lush green of the forest or the scorched red of the desert. Here the palette drifts, pale lavender, dusty turquoise, the off-white shimmer of living bone. Light changes hue by the hour. Shadows feel delicate. Life moves differently too. Paolumu drifts like a breathing lantern, its movements rhythmic and round. It floats more than it flies. Sometimes you forget how large it is, until it's above you, and you hear the air change. Tsitsiyaku stalks the ledges, clever and sharp-eyed, always near but never close. You catch glimpses of it in your periphery, long limbs, quick steps, the brief burst of light that turns a battle into confusion. But nothing stays long in one place. The coral is full of holes, caverns run deep and crooked, and the light can vanish in seconds. What was once bright becomes claustrophobic, and somewhere in those dark spaces, something moves with breathless stillness. Something that hasn't seen the surface in years, maybe longer. You climb again, because the reef won't let you stay in one place. It rises in spirals, and eventually the color fades again. The coral gives way to frost. At first, you don't notice the cold. Then your breath curls in front of your face, and your fingertips begin to ache. Snow doesn't fall yet. It waits, but the wind begins to sting. Then comes the hoarfrost. Here, everything is quiet, truly quiet. The snow muffles every step, every snap of twigs beneath your boots, every breath drawn sharply through the nose. The trees are sparse, thin-armed, and bowed from years of carrying too much weight. Their needles rattle softly when the wind moves. It's hard to tell where the ground ends and the sky begins. Clouds drift so low they scrape the peaks. The air smells clean, but hollow. There's nothing to hide the chill. Even the sun, when it shows itself, feels far away, like light filtered through smoke. It reaches you, but it doesn't warm you. Small life survives in the edges. Popo herd along the valley floor, their thick coats dusted white, steaming gently as they huddle for warmth. Wolves stalk the high cliffs in near silence, their paws wide and sure. Their eyes glow faintly in the dusk, and they do not hesitate when they move. You never see a barioth first. You feel it. The wind bends too suddenly. The snow flares up. Then the long scar of a wingtip in the drifts beside you. Then nothing. You don't know if it's watching, but it was here. That's enough. And then the storms begin. Snowfall here doesn't arrive with warning. One moment, the air is still. The next, it is full of motion, flakes swirling, thickening, blinding. In these moments, sound returns. Not voices, not footsteps. Just the deep, low howl of cold itself, rising through the trees, carried across the peaks like an old forgotten song. The storm passes eventually. It always does. And what remains is silence again, white on white, breath and bone. The pulse of the earth hidden beneath a thick blanket of rest. This place is not cruel. It is still. Stillness, after all, can be just as alive as movement. And from that stillness, we descend. The tundra falls away. The ice thins. The wind softens. The trail levels. and the earth begins to stir again beneath our feet. We have walked far now, through leaf and flame, through dust and coral and snow, and still the world does not give us answers, only presence. But there are those who carry something older, something larger than even the land beneath them. They are not just monsters. They are memory, given shape. Let us go to them now, gently, quietly, as if they might still be listening. There are places in the world where sound does not reach, not because the wind is still, but because something older is listening. The elder dragons do not arrive. They are not summoned. They do not migrate in the way other creatures do. They are revealed, like a mountain half lost in fog, or a ruin uncovered by a shift in the earth. They emerge not as threats, but as truths too large to ignore. Not gods, not beasts, but something in between. The first sign is never loud. It's a change in the rhythm of things. The insects go silent in the forest. The heat disappears from the desert. The snow falls slower than it should. Somewhere, deep underground, a tunnel collapses, not from weight, but from breath. These creatures do not hunt. They exist, and the world rearranges itself to make space. Some are spoken of only in questions. Others leave scars too deep for names. Fatalis is a story told in burned stone. You don't find it in books, not the real story. You find it in the shape of a castle wall melted into slag. In the foundation, stones turn to ash. In the way the birds do not land near the ruins, even now. Generations after the last reported sighting. If it was a dragon, it was not like the others. It moved not with instinct, but with intent. Not to feed, not to defend, to end. Some say it carries the memory of a world before hunters, before the guild, before balance. Others say it is rage given scale, the result of something broken long ago, sealed, forgotten, and then remembered by fire. The truth doesn't matter. What matters is what it leaves behind. No song, no body, just silence, and the ripple of nightmares through stone. Others do not burn the world. They reshape it. In the canyons far to the east, in the fractured deserts where sand folds like broken parchment, something breathes without lungs. The wind moves in long circles. Stone hums underfoot. Then, the first tremor. Not an earthquake, not a roar. A resonance. Shara Ishvalda. There is no perfect word for what it is. Not in the languages we've kept. Not even in the ones we lost. At first, it appears as rock, a bluff, a monument left behind by some ancient sculptor, half buried in sand. Then the wind touches it, and it shifts. The sand peels back, and what looked like stone rises on legs that move too slowly to be real. There is no rush, no panic. Shara does not attack, it declares. Its wings unfurl in layers, not of feathers or leather, but of patterned stone. Shells that sing when they move. The air warps around it, not with heat, but with pressure. You feel your breath move wrong in your chest. You hear your heartbeat echo in the bones of your neck. And then comes the voice. Not speech, not a cry. Something deeper, a sound that bends air and thought. It folds the earth beneath it into shapes no quarry could follow. And when it is done, it does not vanish. It sinks. The sand swallows it again, and the canyon returns to silence. until the next time. In the high ranges of the tundra, where no trees grow and the wind carves names into ice, you may find the old trails, the ones that don't melt, even in the sun. They lead to stillness. And there, standing with the poise of a blade balanced on its tip, is Velkana, not sleeping, not feeding, just standing, perfectly still. Ice clings to her breath, hanging in the air longer than breath should. Her wings do not flex, they glide. When she moves, she doesn't disturb the snow beneath her. It follows. She is not cruel. She is not kind. She is form, a sculpture of motion, forged from stillness itself. Hunters who speak of her rarely describe the fight. They describe the moment before, when their fire dimmed, when their breath failed, when something graceful moved in silence across the frost and changed their understanding of distance forever. There are others who leave no trail, only weather. Namiel is never seen arriving. The storm does not warn. The clouds drift low and quiet, and the first drops fall with the scent of salt and thunder. Then, through the rain, a shimmer. Soft blue, violet edges, a pattern of light, not reflected, but made. Her body doesn't move like flesh. It flows. Water clings to her skin in layers, rising as she exhales, gathering at her wingtips in glowing strands. When she lifts into the air, the rain lifts too, dancing around her as though gravity itself has been suspended in admiration. She does not roar. She resonates. The air tastes different after. The ground glistens for days. And sometimes, where she passed, flowers bloom, deep blue petals trembling in the leftover static of something too beautiful to follow. Then there is the one we do not name, not because it is forbidden, because it is unnecessary. Kushala Daura. Wherever it has passed, the wind speaks for it. Trees bend away from the trail. Rivers run slower beneath it. Fires refuse to light. Your voice dies in your throat. It is not invisible, but you remember it that way. A silver edge against sky. Wings that do not flap. They simply exist, extended against nothing, moving only when the world around them resists. The wind is not her weapon. It is her body. And when she leaves, she does not leave behind footprints, only air, twisting and waiting to rise again. Some elder dragons dwell in ruin, others become it. But there is one who lives not in a place, but in a cycle. Teostra. Fire is not his anger. It is his language. He does not burn the world in rage. He burns it in declaration. Each flare of his mane is a sentence, not to be translated, only endured. When he appears, the heat doesn't rise. It arrives, sudden, sharp, biting from within your armor. Sparks lift from the ground without source. Even the air smells dry, as though it has not been touched in centuries. And when he leaps, the sky answers. He moves not like a dragon, like a storm given legs. And when he is gone, the silence that returns does not comfort. It reminds. The guild does not claim to understand these beings. It studies, it observes, it guesses, and every year the ledgers grow thicker, the sketches more precise, the reports longer. But none of that draws them closer, because these are not monsters, they are boundaries, not just of power, but of knowing. They do not threaten the world. They shape it. They are its limits, its ancient agreements, its breath. And when one of them wakes, the world leans in, not to stop them, to listen. To walk behind such creatures is not a hunt. It is a pilgrimage, and those who choose that path, slowly and with care, become something different too. Let us follow them now, quietly, and ask what that life feels like, one breath at a time. There is a kind of silence that only exists before dawn. Not the absence of sound, the world never truly stops, but a soft suspension of it, a moment held between breath and decision, before the kettle whistles, before the coals are stoked, when the camp is still warm with sleep, and the birds haven't quite started to sing. The hunter wakes in this hour, not because they are told to, not out of urgency, but because their body knows when the land is beginning to stir, and when it isn't. Their gear is simple, familiar, leather worn to softness, a blade dulled and resharpened so many times, the edge follows the shape of a scar instead of a line, a satchel that smells faintly of dried herbs, oil, and the last campfire that carried them home. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forgotten. There is no ceremony, but there is rhythm, boots laced, belt fastened, a final glance at the weathered totem beside the tent, not for luck, for grounding, then a slow breath, and the first step into the cool of morning. The hunter's way is not loud, it is not boastful, it is practiced. From the outside, the life seems solitary, the long walks, the hours spent kneeling beside a single track, the nights where only the stars and the crackle of flame mark time. But the hunter does not feel alone, because the world speaks to those who learn its language, not in words, in changes. The way the birds fall quiet in one patch of trees, the shape of disturbed dust beside a sleeping burrow, the smell of bark torn recently by horn or claw. These are not signs, they are invitations. The hunter is not a soldier, they are not conquerors. Their goal is not to destroy, not even to win. They are there to move with the creature, to understand it, to become a shadow to its breath, and sometimes to end it, but not without pause. Every hunter carries a moment with them, not always spoken aloud, where they decided this life was theirs, not because of the thrill, not because of coin, but because something in the world called to them, and they answered. It might have been the first time they followed a trail and found not danger, but beauty. The delicate print of talon in soft snow, filled slightly with rain, perfectly preserved. It might have been a song, heard deep in the coral highlands, from a creature never glimpsed, a resonance that shivered through the bone, low and mournful, like the wind remembering a name. It might have been failure, a hunt lost, a wound earned, a moment of panic turned to stillness, when the monster could have killed, but didn't. Whatever it was, it marked them. And from then on, they were never quite separate from the land again. The world is not fair. The hunter knows this. Sometimes the strong fall. Sometimes the prepared are outmatched. You can pack every tool, sharpen every blade, know every weak point, and still return empty-handed, or not return at all. But that is not defeat. because every moment in the wild is earned. Every step forward is a question asked, and sometimes the answer is no. A hunt is not just the kill. It is the hours spent moving through the world with purpose. It is the decision not to take the shot. It is the night spent sleeping beside a fire you didn't want to build, because the rain came too early and the tracks washed away. It is persistence, not force. When the strike finally comes, it is not a triumph. It is a recognition that you've watched the world long enough to be allowed this. Some hunters bow their heads after, not always, but often. A small moment, a breath released, a hand on the earth, not out of guilt, out of thanks. Because the world doesn't owe you its monsters. You're allowed to walk this path only if you walk it carefully. Some say the hunter's way is lonely, but it isn't. It's full of sound if you listen, full of color if you wait, full of story if you ask the right questions at the right time. It's not about being strong. It's about being still enough to hear what the land is asking of you, and wise enough to know when not to answer. There are hunters who grow old. They walk slower. Their packs are lighter. Their hunts are fewer. But when they walk through a village, others move aside with a kind of quiet respect, not because of what they've killed, but because of what they've carried. Stories, scars, the names of places where the trees bend a certain way, where the wind always comes from the left, where a beast once fell and never again returned. These elders often say little, but when they do, their words land like arrows, precise, because you do not speak idly when you've lived so long with silence. The hunter does not need glory. They do not crave attention. Their life is not recorded in pages, but in footprints worn into the trails others now follow, in handwritten notes left behind in field journals, quiet observations in the margins, in maps passed down, their edges frayed from use, their surfaces dotted with circles and warnings and tiny sketches of scale and flower and claw. Legacy to a hunter is not what you leave behind. It's what others learn from the space you made. And still, each morning, a new one wakes. Someone younger, someone not yet scarred. Their blade is too clean, their pack is overstuffed, their boots creak when they walk. But they'll learn, and one day they'll pause beside a track in the mud. They'll run their fingers along a scratch in the bark, and they'll hear it. The thing that's always been there, just beneath the wind, just behind the birdsong, the call. Not a roar, not a cry, just an invitation to listen, to follow, to understand. For every hunter who walks the wild, there is another who writes their story down, not with flair, not with flourish, but with patience. In the halls of the guild, the memory is kept. Let's go there now, where the fires burn low and the past sleeps in ink. The fire burns low in the main hall. It is not the roaring flame of ceremony, not the kind that lights festivals or sends sparks into the stars. This fire is practical. It warms the bones. It keeps the damp from the floor. And it's been burning for longer than most who pass through these halls have been alive. The building creaks softly in the wind. Its beams are old, heavy, smoothed down by 1,000 years of weather and hands. Not polished, worn. Everything here has been touched. A table edge rounded from elbows, leaned during long nights of strategy. A stair that sags slightly in the middle, shaped by countless boots. No part of the guild's presence is loud. Even its banners hang with humility, faded cloth, stitched with careful care. They do not flap. They hang still, the way memories do. Each one marks a region, a legacy, a flame that once flickered somewhere else, and was carried here, not extinguished, just continued. Most of what happens here is quiet. Papers passed between hands, names spoken aloud only once, then written in ledger, supplies packed with steady hands by people who will never leave the city walls, old maps laid across older tables, their edges curled, corners patched with cloth. The ink fades, the symbols evolve, but the language stays the same. This is where the weight of the world is held, not by strength, but by structure. The guild has always existed, or so it feels. Ask anyone where it began, and you'll get stories. None confirmed, all believed. Some say it started in a mountaintop observatory, built by stargazers who noticed the constellations changing when the dragons stirred. Others say it formed in the ruins of a lost empire, a final agreement between rival clans who understood that the world was too big to rule, but not too big to share. The truth, like so much here, is less important than the record, because the guild doesn't need a myth. It needs continuity. That's why the halls are never empty, even when they seem to be. A clerk works by candlelight, scratching names into old books, cross-referencing sightings and seasons. A cook prepares meals hours before dawn, in case the morning brings new arrivals, tired, hungry, wounded, or triumphant. A blacksmith tightens the bolts on a supply cart, though it won't leave until next week. Nothing happens quickly, but nothing is ever forgotten. The guild's strength lies in its memory, not in what it boasts, but in what it preserves. Notes from hunts long past are kept in drawers, organized not by name, but by region, by season, by weather conditions. A hunter returning from the same path decades later might find a slip of parchment waiting, faded, water-stained, but legible. Winds shift at the ravine's mouth. Rathian passed through late spring, checked the trees above the second rise. She nests higher now. No signature, just a quiet gift from one hunter to another. That's the heart of this place, not command. Connection. The guild does not order, it coordinates. It trusts that those who walk the wild know it better than those who stay behind. But it listens. When a new threat rises, when a sighting is recorded in 3 different camps within a fortnight, when the wind begins to carry sounds that don't belong, the guild does not panic. It meets, not with urgency, but with presence. Old hunters lean over new maps. Observers from different regions speak not in alarm, but in tone. They trade experience, not fear. And when the time comes, the guild does not assign a name. It asks, who will go? And always, someone answers. They always have. This quiet trust extends to everything. The contracts are simple, written in plain language, no flourish, no fanfare. The moment a new post is placed on the board, it becomes part of the rhythm. A few lines, a name, a location, a creature, a note, maybe something learned, something guessed. No one is praised for taking a hunt. No one is scorned for walking away. The guild does not deal in glory. It deals in balance, and balance cannot be forced. It must be watched, maintained, responded to, not imposed. That is why the archivists speak so softly. You might see one, an older woman with a bent back and ink-stained sleeves, speaking to a young hunter just returned, not scolding, not instructing, just asking, "What did you notice? Did it circle? Did it bleed? Did it look at you or through you?" Every answer becomes a note. Every note becomes part of the record, and the record becomes the guide. In the far corner of the hall, tucked behind a stack of crates and a lantern that burns just a little too low, sits a table few notice. Atop it, a wooden box, carved long ago, the lid slightly warped. Inside, letters, dozens of them, some sealed, some never sent, some just fragments, observations, farewells, small thoughts written in moments of fear or wonder. They're not organized. They're not signed. But every so often, a hunter reads one and understands something new. Not about the monsters, about themselves, because the guild does not teach you how to hunt. It teaches you how to return, how to find your place in a pattern that does not need you, but allows you, if you move carefully enough. It teaches you that legacy isn't what you claim, it's what survives you. The walls here are layered with dust, not from neglect, from time. Each beam, each floorboard, each ring, left by a mug set down in thought, all of it bears witness to a lineage too long to name and too quiet to brag. The guild does not call attention to itself. It does not shine. It holds, and in that holding, it endures. And still, outside these walls, the wild moves, not with instruction, but with instinct. Let us return now, not to the forest or the forge, but to the stories that ripple through both, the monsters whose names are not just written, but whispered. Some monsters are not hunted, they are told, passed down in firelight whispers, not with urgency, but with weight. A name said just once, eyes flicking to the darkened corners of the lodge. Not fear exactly, reverence. They are not secrets. They are reminders. Not all monsters roar. Some hum, some drift, some pass overhead and never touch the ground again. Their presence is not always in the flesh. Sometimes it is in the way the river curves more sharply one year, the way the trees fall in strange, spiraling patterns, the way a child, born into the village midwinter, opens their eyes already, knowing which trails not to take. No one tells them. They just know. Because the old stories settle into the land itself, and the land never forgets. The first is always Anjanath, not because it is oldest, because it is loudest. Its steps echo long before it appears. The trees shift in response. Birds scatter. Even the wind changes direction. It does not sneak. It does not deceive. It comes forward directly, as if daring the world to oppose it. The myth says it once chased the sun across the sky, trying to devour its heat. Its back still smolders with the memory. Hunters speak of the scent before the fight, a musk that clings to the tongue, thick and oily, like something that should not be breathed. No one remembers its first roar, but everyone remembers hearing it. Then, beneath the boughs of the forest, another shadow walks. Great Jagras. Its form is low, its belly sagging heavy with recent meals. It does not seek violence, it seeks fullness. The legend says it was once a spirit of abundance, a creature that gathered all it could, not out of greed, but in preparation for some long winter that never came. Now it hoards instinctively, swallows what it can, waits for cold that no longer arrives. Children in the lowland villages leave berries at the edge of the woods, not out of fear, just respect, a soft gesture, a way of saying, "We see you." Others are sharper, stranger. Tobi Kadachi is a rumor told in the rustle of trees, the sudden static on your skin before a storm. Its tail sparks even before it strikes. The air bends around it. Its body coils not like a serpent, but like lightning made flesh. The story goes that it lives inside thunder, that it rides it, sleeping between crashes, waking only when called by imbalance. No one has ever found its nest, only claw marks where the lightning fell. Further west, near the edges of the wastes, something stirs beneath the rock. Baruth, covered in hardened mud, its body shaped not by evolution, but by impact. A living battering ram. It does not wait. It charges. Always forward. Always direct. They say it remembers the shape of the first landslide, and it mimics that shape, not knowing why. Its myth is short. A single phrase, passed from hunter to apprentice. Don't be in front. That's all. Sometimes that's enough. Not far from the oases, curled beneath shallow pools, Diablos waits, a creature of dust and horn, of sand disturbed and not yet settled. Its name is not shouted, it is avoided, quietly. The legend says it is half stone, half vengeance, born when the desert swallowed a cathedral. Its horns grew from the ruins, its rage from the silence that followed. It does not chase you. It expects you to flee, and if you do not, it decides what you become. In the jungles and reefs, myths are different, more fluid, more uncertain, like Mizutsune. It is not made of water, but it plays in it, slides through foam and mist, leaving behind trails of bubble and bloom. Hunters do not speak of its violence. They speak of the way it moves, graceful, low, a dance always, half-finished. They say it was once a reflection, caught in a still pool too long, and now it walks. It smells like rain on old petals, and its gaze is not cruel, just curious. You do not run from it, you follow, even if you shouldn't. Deeper still, hidden in high canopies and still air, something glides without sound. Nagakuga. It is the moment before you're noticed, the breath you take before stepping on dry leaves, the hush at the center of a predator's patience. You do not hear it. You feel the absence of its absence. In stories, it is called the shadow's spine. Those who survive rarely speak of the fight. They speak of the stillness, of how nothing made noise, not even the trees. And when they turned around, something was no longer there. Every region has one. The myth that doesn't end in words. The shape you never fully saw. The name the guild records in ink, but everyone else carves into bone. Basilgeuse. It is not hunted. It arrives. First, the sound. Not a roar, not a wing beat, a whistle. As if something high above has been watching for a very long time, and has finally decided to fall. Scales drop first, glowing, cracking, alive. They embed in the earth like seeds of fire, and then bloom. The myth says Basilgeuse was born in the sky's refusal to stay empty, that every time the world grew too quiet, it returned, a comet with purpose, a punishment. Hunters speak of it like a weather pattern. You don't fight it, you survive it, or you don't. There are gentler myths too, like Lavasheth, the fish of magma, the sleeper in molten beds. They say it was once a river, turned upside down, cursed to swim through fire until it cooled the anger of the mountain. No one knows if it can see, but it always seems to know where you are, and when it vanishes beneath the lava, the world holds its breath and waits. Up in the peaks, where frost grows like lichen and the wind speaks in broken syllables, a different kind of story moves. Barioth, its breath freezes before it lands. Its wings cut air into pieces. Hunters call it the mist that has teeth. Its myth is a warning passed in glacier villages. Don't whistle at night, not in winter, not unless you want it to answer. Some say it does not kill to feed, it kills to move, because anything that slows it down must be cleared. Even further out, where no trees grow and the world is nothing but open, biting wind, a new silence begins. It belongs to Tigrex. Its roar shatters birdsong. Its charge is not a run. It is momentum incarnate. There is no legend of its origin, only the phrase, Tigrex does not stop. That's all they need to say. And finally, at the edge of names, there is one more, Devil Joe. The first myth most hunters hear, the last they ever want to meet. Its body is hunger given mass. Its breath is rot and memory. Its footsteps are not loud, but the echo they leave behind never fades. It does not have a home. It is a warning. In every region, in every climate, the trail may appear. Wide, smeared, ragged, marked by something that does not sleep. The myth says the world grew it to remind us that the hunt is not always ours. Sometimes we are the ones being observed, not pursued, not stalked, just seen and weighed. These stories do not belong to one place. They live across the map, etched into rocks, braided into songs, burned into the muscle of those who came back, changed. They are not catalogued. They are carried, and though the monsters they speak of may not remember the stories told about them, the land does, and it continues to whisper those names in wind and in stone and in the shifting of leaves long after footsteps fade. But for all these stories, not every part of the hunter's life is danger and distance. Sometimes it is warm broth, lantern light, and boots left drying by the fire. Let's go there now, to the kitchens, to the markets, to the village at dusk. The village does not wake all at once. It stirs, softly. A door creaks open, a bucket tips into a trough, a pot is set to boil over a low flame, and somewhere nearby, a cat coughs once, unimpressed by the weather. The sky is still dark when the first sounds rise, quiet, steady, familiar. The hiss of fat in a pan, the thump of boots against wood, the tap of a knife as vegetables are sliced with the kind of efficiency that only comes from years of repetition. Nothing here is rushed. Everything begins with care. In the market, stalls are being assembled with one hand and held together by string and prayer. Cloth awnings stretch and sag, colored with old dyes, patched over with bits of old banners and gear bags too torn to salvage. Their patterns are mismatched, but no one minds. Every piece here has been used before. That's part of the beauty. The air smells of onions and smoke, of boiled broth, rich and simple, stirred with wooden spoons the size of a forearm. Pickled roots clatter into ceramic jars. Meat, freshly salted, is laid out to cure beside thick slabs of fish wrapped in woven leaves. This is not a city of excess, but no one goes hungry. A hunter passes through the square, rubbing their shoulder with one hand, half awake, boots unlaced. They nod to the cook. Not a word is spoken, but when they return an hour later, there will be a bowl waiting. Nothing fancy, just stew, hot, filling, enough. The village runs not on schedules, but on memory. You know when the forge is hottest by the smell, metal and ash, and the sweet undertone of something burning that shouldn't be, but always does. You know when the scout fly trainers have returned by the high, chittering chorus of insects settling in their cages, and you know when the day is truly underway, because the children start shouting, not out of anger, not from fear, just the joy of small feet on stone paths, chasing each other between drying hides and sharpened stakes, ducking beneath carts and overhanging herbs without slowing. There are rules here, but they aren't written. Don't touch the palico gear while it's laid out to dry. Don't stack your hunt spoils too close to the fountain, and never, under any circumstance, interrupt the seamstress during morning repairs. She will not speak to you. She will simply hand you your gear unfinished, and your next hunt will be a lesson in humility. Palicos move between houses with the quiet focus of monks. They carry bundles of vegetables twice their size. They tighten straps, clean tools, and flick dust from weapon racks with tails that curl just so. Their voices rise only when necessary, to scold, to laugh, or to remind a hunter that yes, they forgot their potions again. No, we're not turning back. There's a rhythm to this place. You feel it not in clocks, but in the shift of light and sound. At mid-morning, the smiths begin to sing, low, rhythmic calls that keep hammer and hand in sync. Not quite music, more like timing, a shared cadence that echoes off the forge walls like a drumbeat you only notice when it stops. By midday, the outer walkways warm under the sun. Hunters rest here, backs against stone, half asleep. One smokes a pipe, another mends a torn strap, needle clutched between calloused fingers. No one speaks much. But the silence is not uncomfortable. It's full. Evening comes with color. Lanterns are lit in slow waves, one by one, soft orange spheres blooming along the walkways, flickering in bowls of oil, swinging gently above doorways. The smell of grilled meat drifts from the canteen, mixing with the sharper tang of citrus peel and the deep, earthy aroma of roasted root vegetables. A small group gathers near the fire pit, passing cups hand to hand. No one asks what's inside. It's always a little different. Sweet, strong, better shared than explained. Laughter begins, low at first, then rising as someone retells a story they've told before, and will tell again tomorrow. A tale about a Rathian that tripped over its own tail. A Kuluyaku that stole a pan and wouldn't give it back. A time when someone, maybe the speaker, maybe not, accidentally scared off an elder dragon with a sneeze. None of it matters. What matters is the warmth, the repetition, the way the village holds its people like cupped hands around flame. There are rituals too, soft ones. A slice of apple left on a windowsill for good luck before a hunt. A finger touched to a favorite stone on the edge of the square. A small, worn charm tied to a weapon handle. Not for power, for memory. These rituals are not taught. They're absorbed, picked up like habits from those who came before, passed down not by instruction, but by proximity. You do them because someone else did, because it felt right, because in a world where everything can change in a heartbeat, these things remain. In the quiet corners of the village, where the light fades quicker and the air smells of cedar and sleep, you find the resting places of elders. They do not hunt anymore, but they watch. From porches, from balconies, from chairs pulled close to open windows. Their eyes follow the young, not in judgment, just in remembrance. They've seen the patterns before, the same eagerness, the same uncertainty, the same quiet pride when someone returns with scratches and soot and a story half finished. And they know better than anyone what comes next. Not all hunters stay. Some leave, some fall, some return changed. But the village remains, its walls patched, its tables sanded smooth, its stories deepening like well-worn ruts in a path no one dares to pave over. Because daily life here is not something you describe, it's something you inherit, in the smell of stew rising through floorboards, in the creak of steps walked by tired boots for generations, in the low murmur of voices that drift through windows as night settles in, and in the silence that follows, when the fire burns low, and the last chair is pushed in, and the village exhales. But even here in stillness, the work continues, not in combat, not in glory, but in the slow, daily art of survival. Let us follow that rhythm now, to the benches, to the blades, to the quiet rituals of readying oneself for the wild. The day begins before the hunt does, not with weapons drawn or footsteps marching, but with hands, bare, calloused, deliberate. They move through motions performed 1,000 times, not from habit, from respect. A blade does not stay sharp on its own, and a hunter does not leave without seeing to their gear. The sharpening bench sits beneath the eaves, just past the forge, in a pocket of early light where the air still smells of last night's fire. The grindstone is old. Its grooves tell their own stories, notched from rushed passes, layered with filings that never quite sweep away. The hunter rests one boot against the pedal and begins to turn. Slow at first, then steady. The blade meets stone with a soft scrape, a hush that rises and falls in long, careful arcs. Sparks lift briefly in the morning light and vanish before they land. The sound isn't harsh, it's calming, like a song sung from muscle memory. You don't need to look. Your hands already know the angle. Next comes the oil. Not much, just enough to darken the cloth. Rubbed into the grip, worked into the fittings. Leather flexed once at the seam, then set aside. The metal no longer shines, not unless it has to. No one hunts with ornaments. The wild doesn't care how clean your reflection is. You check the fastenings, every buckle, every knot. You run your thumb down the stitching of the satchel strap. Fray means failure, and failure out there doesn't offer second chances. Inside the pack, each item has a place. Potions, wrapped tight in cloth to stop the glass from knocking. A few vials of antidote, less for monsters, more for the wrong berries, gathered too late in the day. Rations, dried meat, hard bread, water flasks double wrapped in hide to keep them cool, even after long miles. And then there are the things not everyone brings. A small carving stone, no bigger than a coin, for passing the time in long waits. A folded scrap of parchment, written on once and never again. A name, a dried flower, pressed between leathers, a reminder of where the last hunt ended and why it mattered. These aren't tools, they're anchors, and sometimes they're the difference between panic and breath. Not all hunters prepare the same way. Some sleep beside their weapons. Others hang them from trees to cool. Some burn sage before every hunt. Some sit in silence for an hour and say nothing, not to pray, but to remember that they are stepping into something larger than themselves. In the canteen, a palico prepares a travel meal with one paw, stirring with a spoon twice its size. The food is plain: salted rice, dried vegetables, bits of charred meat wrapped in thick leaves. Enough to fill, not enough to slow you down. The hunter accepts it without comment. They eat standing, gear already strapped, eyes on the ridge beyond the village. The sun is higher now. The path ahead is warming. There's time, but not much. They finish, fold the wrapper, slide it into their pocket. It will be burned later. Nothing is left behind. At the armory, the smith stands at the door. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. He checks the edge with 2 fingers, nods once, then turns away. You've trained long enough to know what that nod means. It's ready. And so are you. But preparation isn't just metal and stitching. It's knowledge. It's listening. A hunter walks the map in their mind long before they reach it. They know where the sun will fall by midday, where the wind bends through the canyon, where the birds go silent too quickly. They do not guess, they notice, and they remember, because in the field there's no time to read. Your hand must know the pouch by weight. Your eye must know the print by pressure. Your body must know when to move and when to become still. Even rest is strategy. On long hunts, you find pockets of safety, narrow ledges hidden from sight, clearings where the sound carries too well for anything to sneak close. You mark them in your mind, places to breathe, places to mend. A torn strap can end a hunt. A cracked blade, ignored, becomes ruin. And so the routines continue, even in the wild. At dusk, when the light folds and the insects rise, a hunter sets their traps without sound. They dig with fingers, not tools. They cover the line with leaves chosen hours earlier. They set the bait, not too close, not too fresh. The monster won't be fooled by anything that doesn't feel real. Later, by the fire, they'll open their journal. It's not beautiful. Pages water-warped, edges burned from a misstep in the wastes, ink blurred. But inside, notes, careful, quiet, exact, circles the nest before settling. Favors left side when wounded, avoids deep snow, despite size. No conclusions, just questions, just care. Because this work is not about winning, it is about returning. And those who return do so with their gear intact, not unbroken, just understood. At night, when the fire burns low and the world narrows to the edge of warmth and shadow, the hunter unstraps their chest piece, sets down their blade, rolls their cloak beneath their neck. They close their eyes, not in restlessness, but in readiness. Because tomorrow will ask again, are you prepared? And the answer, as always, begins not with battle, but with breath. There is still one question that lingers, beneath all the weight of practice and silence. Why hunt at all? Why walk that path, again and again, knowing how much it takes, and how little it offers in return? Let us sit with that now, and listen. The fire has burned low, not out, just low enough to quiet the colors. The edge of the coals glows faint red beneath a thin layer of ash, pulsing now and then with a soft breath of heat. Outside, the night presses in, the kind that doesn't feel heavy, just large, quiet. A hunter sits beside what's left of the flame. Their boots are off, their shoulders are bare. They hold a mug, cradled between worn hands, and stare into the middle distance, not watching, not waiting, just sitting. The hunt ended hours ago, but the questions didn't, because the hunt never really ends when the blade is sheathed. That part is easy, clean. What lingers is softer, harder to name. Some say the hunt is a matter of balance, predator and prey, ecosystem and edge, that the monsters grow too numerous, too bold, that something must step in from time to time to remind the world that no part can grow unchecked. And there is truth in that. But balance is not peace, it's tension, held carefully, constantly. Others say it is about proving something, strength, endurance, skill sharpened to the point of survival, the kind of mastery that only emerges when the stakes are high and the body moves before the mind can follow. That's part of it too. But the hunter knows. That's not all. Because if it were just skill, if it were just control, the question would have faded long ago. The wondering, the way your chest goes still after a hunt, and something, somewhere deep, still asks, why do we keep doing this? Why return to the wild again and again? Why follow something stronger than you through heat and frost and places where even the trees seem to whisper warnings? Why risk not coming back? The answers don't come easily. They don't come in the middle of a hunt. Not when your pulse is up and the ground is shifting beneath you. They come later, in the small silences. The moment just before the first strike, when the wind shifts and you see the creature, not as an enemy, just moving, existing, breathing, a part of the land, as much as you are. They come in the way your hand lingers on its side after the battle, how you look down and feel both reverence and grief. Not regret, never regret. You knew what you came for. You knew what it would cost. But still, it's not just about survival, because the truth is, hunting teaches you how to be present, how to move carefully, how to listen, how to fail, and how to try again. It teaches you the feel of weather in your bones, the rhythm of stillness, the difference between quiet that holds breath and quiet that holds warning. It teaches you the edges of your own ability, not so you can boast, but so you know when to stop, when to wait, when to go home. It teaches you about death, not in some poetic way, in the real silent enduring way that the natural world has always known it. No cruelty, no drama, just the shifting of weight, the return of matter to soil, the hand laid across a scar that will not heal. The memory of a face you only saw once, caught in the blur of dust after the final roar. It is not glorious, it is honest, and in that honesty there is space for humility, for awe, for that strange, still part of the hunt that no one writes down, the part where you crouch beneath a ledge in the rain and watch your quarry sleep for the first time. See its breath, watch its tail twitch, and understand, for just a moment, that you are not so different, both trying to live, both shaped by danger, both returning to something older than speech. Some hunters speak of the hunt as a dialogue, not a fight, a conversation, one body answering another, each movement a sentence, each feint a question, each roar a refusal, each wound a truth, and at the end, silence. Not always death, sometimes parting, a mutual turning away, because some hunts are not meant to be finished, they're meant to be felt. And that feeling, that pulse that rises through your feet into your chest, the weight of the world coiling and shifting just beyond reach, that's the part that stays, even when the hunt is over, even when the armor is hung, when the pages are closed, when the fire dies out. You still carry it, in the way you walk, in the way you see the land, in the way you understand what it means to take a life, not as power, but as weight, and to carry that weight with care. That is what the hunt offers, not pride, not reward, just the quiet knowledge that you were present in something vast, that you moved through it, and came back changed. And now, with the hunt behind us, with the stories told, and the gear cleaned and stored, we walk the final stretch, not into battle, but into stillness. Let us close this journey as all journeys should be closed, with memory, with breath, and with the quiet comfort of knowing we are no longer out there. The wind has gone still, not absent, just resting. Somewhere beyond the edge of the village, The trees shift with weightless sound, not from weather, but from the natural movement of things settling in for the night. The last hunt has ended, the last fire has dimmed, and the last set of footsteps has vanished into the folds of old paths. In the courtyard, the lanterns burn low. One flickers, briefly, and stays lit. The wood beneath you is warm, not from fire, but from time. A bench long sat upon, a stone step worn smooth at the edges. This place has not changed much, but you have. You can feel it. Not in scars, not in trophies, in stillness, the kind you carry only after you've seen the world move and chosen not to chase it. You hear the faint sound of water behind the lodge, a stream that threads through the edge of the settlement, shallow and narrow, its surface touched by the night's breath. There's a pail left on the stones. Someone forgot it, or left it intentionally. You don't move. The stars are out now, fewer than usual, but enough. They hang between the rafters of clouds, quiet and unreachable, the kind of stars that don't demand to be seen, the kind that simply wait to be noticed. A lantern moth drifts past your shoulder. Its wings make no sound. Its body glows with the dim, pulsing blue of something that has always known the dark. It doesn't fear you. It just passes by, on its way to somewhere old. In the lodge behind you, someone shifts in their bunk. A board creaks. A breath is drawn. And then the village returns to its resting pulse. Not sleeping, just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean absence. It means peace. Outside the village, the world turns, slowly. A storm gathers far out at sea. A waterfall carries its usual rhythm. A hunter sharpens a blade in a different camp, one you'll never see, under a sky you'll never walk beneath. They don't know your name. You don't know theirs. But they are part of this too. And that matters, because the wild never belonged to one person. It was never claimed, only shared, for as long as anyone dared walk through it. Your breath comes slower now, not tired, just full. You remember the shape of the forest, not the trees, but the way the light moved through them. You remember the wastes, the color of the heat, how it bent the horizon into something half-imagined. You remember the coral, its impossible stillness, like the bones of a forgotten sea, dreaming of its tides. You remember the cold, the way the frost made everything sound, further away. And you remember what it felt like to listen, to kneel beside a track, to wait in silence, to move when it was time, and to stop when the world asked you to. The hunt is over, but the world is still turning. It does not wait, it does not mourn, it simply goes on. And you, sitting now with your hands folded and your eyes nearly closed, understand something simple, not profound, but honest. You were part of it, for a time, and that time mattered. The coals in the hearth crackle once, then go quiet, your eyes close. The lodge breathes around you, and somewhere far away, a monster dreams, unbothered. The land holds its rhythm, and all is still.